Welcome to the Mental Health Merienda, your snack-sized guide to mental health wellness. I'm Dr. Adeline Leon, licensed clinical psychologist specializing in neuropsychology.
And I'm Michelle Young, licensed clinical social worker.
So for this episode, we'll be discussing gratitude, what it is and what it's not, and benefits of incorporating it into your life, as well as how to practice more of it. And so, with the year coming to an end, people often take time to make New Year's resolutions. But sometimes being so focused on goals we set for the next year can make us forget to focus on the good and all the areas that we have to be grateful for.
In a 2014 study done by the Pew Research Center, a large majority of Americans feel a strong sense of gratitude or thankfulness on a weekly basis. What we see is that it's about 78% of Americans that were polled show a sense of gratitude weekly. It's a bit higher for those who practice a religion, practice Christianity or Judaism, any sort of religion. It tends to be a little bit higher, but even those who are unaffiliated with a religion still show above 60% of feeling gratitude weekly. And 2014, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I'd be curious if they were to do that same study now, how that would look. But I think, I want to hold on to the positive, and I think that's a nice thing to see that on a weekly basis, Americans are feeling grateful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, what exactly is gratitude? According to the American Psychological Association, gratitude refers to an appreciation for what is valuable and meaningful to oneself. And it's a general state of thankfulness or appreciation. Gratitude involves acknowledging the positive aspects of one's life without dismissing or ignoring the negative ones. And so it's just a bit of a balance between those two aspects.
I think that's very key, is that not dismissing or ignoring the negative feelings. So it sounds like gratitude helps people refocus on and appreciate on what they have instead of what they lack. And it helps to learn to acknowledge that there is goodness in someone in your life. So according to research that was done by Dr. Robert Emmons from UC Davis and Dr. Michael McCullough from the University of Miami, they found that gratitude in general has two important components. So the first component is that affirmation of goodness in one's life. So we affirm that all in all, life is good and that life has elements that make it worth living. And then the second component that they found was that there's this recognition that there's goodness that lies outside of ourselves. So that could be whether you believe in a higher power or not. So for those that might believe in a religion or practice a religion, that higher power is watching over you. It's making your life happy. And even for those of us that aren't religious, that there's still something outside of ourselves, whether it be the people or the community, that's helping us to achieve goodness in our lives.
So gratitude can sometimes be confused with something called toxic positivity, but they are not the same thing. Toxic positivity refers to the mindset that demands relentless positivity, disregarding any negative feelings or emotions or experiences. So it promotes the idea that one must always be happy, optimistic, and cheerful, and it often invalidates genuine feelings of sadness, anger, or frustration.
I think we see a lot of that in social media sometimes, right? Like good vibes only, like that kind of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. I do notice a lot of that kind of good vibes only, or just be positive, or everything will get better. And I think they have good intentions, but I think the issue with that is that it could be very invalidating of experiencing negative emotions. And so if, for example, you have a loved one who passes, I think, again, having good intentions, saying, oh, everything will get better. Well, it will get better. It tends to get better. But in that moment, that grief and bereavement that you're experiencing, that's a very difficult feeling. It's a very empty feeling, and it's hard to get over that. And so you want to also acknowledge those negative feelings and give the person space and permission to experience that without just it's kind of like trying to suppress the negative with the positive.
Right. Trying to replace it when, like you're saying, like with the example of bereavement, you do have to still mourn. There is a moment of sadness and thinking about the person that you lost, but, knowing that over time, it will get better, but not dismissing that current feeling of missing somebody, because that's very real. While positivity can be beneficial, so like you're saying, Adeline, it's well-intentioned, a lot of these things, but toxic positivity dismisses that genuine emotion. Gratitude, on the other hand, acknowledges the complexity of human emotions, so it allows us to find the silver lining without denying the challenges we face. So that's a key difference there, is that with gratitude, you're not dismissing the negative feelings, you're acknowledging all feelings that come with it. So, striking a balance between maintaining a positive mindset and acknowledging our authentic emotions is crucial for our mental health and overall well being. Again, you're not going to solve anything by suppressing your sadness, suppressing anger, suppressing frustration. You have to kind of accept everything, right?
And the thing is that if you try to suppress those negative feelings, they come out in other ways. And so if you're suppressing depression, for example, or sad feelings, they can come out in more of like externalizing behaviors. And so it could come out in abusing substances or becoming very irritable. It tends to come out somehow. So you can't completely suppress those feelings, those negative feelings.
Right. You have to deal with it. You can't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, unlike toxic positivity, gratitude is all about being appreciative of the good things in your life. It's about being present. So, you think about mindfulness, and it's also being grounded in reality. So, unlike toxic positivity, again, where you're suppressing those feelings, you're pretending that they don't exist. We're talking about mindfulness and gratitude. You're being present in the moment, and you're accepting like all the feelings that come with what's happening.
And so, to date, numerous studies have found that having a grateful outlook not only has positive effects on our emotional health, like Michelle just finished going through, but it also has positive benefits for our interpersonal and romantic relationships. And so, most research about gratitude supports an association between gratitude and positive well being. And so there's quite a bit of research from Dr. Joshua Brown and Dr. Joel Wong from Indiana University that suggests that gratitude writing can be beneficial not just for healthy and well adjusted individuals, but also for people who struggle with mental health concerns. And so their findings showed that practicing gratitude, in addition to receiving psychological counseling, carries greater benefits than counseling alone, even when the gratitude practice is brief. And later on in this video, we'll be showing you some actual practical tips that you can follow and ways to be able to incorporate those brief gratitude practices into your life.
So, their research suggests 4 insights on why gratitude has psychological benefits. And the first one being that gratitude disconnects us from toxic emotions. So, in further analyzing their results, they found that it was the lack of using negative emotions rather than the abundance of using positive words that explained the mental health gap between those participants who were practicing gratitude writing versus the control group. So, when you write about how grateful you are to others, it becomes harder for you to ruminate on negative feelings such as anger or envy.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting, Michelle, that what really stood out to me about those research findings is the part about the abundance of positive words. That's not really what explained it. It's the lack of negative words. So that's again counteracting, or it's a counter argument against toxic positivity, because that's what toxic positivity tries to do. Is if someone is feeling sad or upset or stressed or anxious, well, just throw a bunch of positive words, good vibes, positivity only, and then see if that helps. But you have to process those negative emotions. You can't just put a band-aid over them with positive feelings.
Yeah. Process it, but not ruminate on it, right? So that's kind of what gratitude helps to do, is that helps you, it disconnects you so that you're not just focusing on the negative. It does take you away from that. And then you do get to focus on like the other side of it, which is, who were the helpers in a situation? What is something that is the silver lining, as we said earlier?
Right, exactly. And so gratitude helps even if you don't share it. And so I think this really stood out to me, that just the mere act of writing a letter of gratitude to someone can help you appreciate the people in your life and shift your focus away from negative thoughts and feelings, even if you never send the letter to share your feelings. And so, of course, it's great to share your feelings with a person. We would encourage that. But it's even just the mere act of reflecting on it yourself in that process of writing has very significant benefits.
Yeah, that was also so surprising to me, because I would think if you tell someone that you're appreciative of them, you also get that secondary good feeling that you made them happy. So I thought that was really interesting in this with this insight is that it's not even about telling the other person. It's just even just reflecting on it had that positive effect.
Yeah.
So another insight is that gratitude's benefits take time. So the mental health benefits of gratitude writing didn't emerge immediately in Dr. Brown and Dr. Wong's research, but it was gradually accruing over time. So the individuals who were in the gratitude group reported better mental health than the others 4 weeks after their gratitude writing exercises. And the difference in mental health became even larger 12 weeks after the writing exercises. So I think that's another counter argument against toxic positivity. Because again, it's not just, let's just say a bunch of positive things and now you're going to feel better. Gratitude is something kind of like exercise, kind of like anything else that's a healthy habit, is you do have to practice it. It does take time to see its benefits. It's not something that's a Band-Aid that's going to work overnight.
And I think even for me, what I took from that is not just that it had the benefits 4 weeks later, but that they became even larger 12 weeks after the writing activity. So I kind of wish that they had extended this study to be a bit more longitudinal and see it maybe 10 years later, 5 years later, or even doing this study on people in their 20s and then following up with them when they're in their 40s, when you have the stress of kids and job and marriage and maybe parents that you're caregiving for, and how that gratitude, if we continue to see those effects, I think that would be really interesting. And if they continue to practice it, that would be very interesting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so gratitude not only has these effects in your just daily life, but also we see the actual positive effects on the brain, on fMRI studies, which I found fascinating. It's very related to what I do in neuropsychology. And so the research also showed distinct differences in brain activity in participants who felt more grateful. So when comparing those who wrote the gratitude letters to those who did not, the gratitude letter writers showed greater activation in the medial prefrontal cortex. So that's a brain area in the toward the front of the brain, and that's responsible for planning and decision making. The effect was found even 3 months after the letter writing began. So similar to the one that you mentioned, I would be very interested in this effect to see if we could still find those same effects 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years later. But the way that I interpret that is that the regular gratitude practice, it helps your ability to be more intentional and make more deliberate decisions, because that's what the prefrontal cortex does. It's that part of the brain that's involved in what neuropsychologists call executive functioning. And so it's a lot of your ability to plan things out, your ability to think abstractly and prioritize tasks. In children who have ADHD, it's the part of the brain that they tend to have a lot of difficulty with, and that's what accounts for a lot of the disorganization and difficulty prioritizing tasks and procrastinating. So what I gather from that is that this gratitude practice can even have some benefits for that executive functioning.
So research on gratitude has also reported several mental health benefits, especially when it's habitual and it becomes part of your thought process. It's been shown to reduce depression, also to reduce anxiety. And with anxiety specifically, it's helping to combat those negative thinking patterns. And it also helps keep you grounded and present in the moment. So that's what helps with anxiety. It also does help with stress relief. So practicing gratitude regularly helps calm the nervous system. And then it also helps with improving sleep. So practicing gratitude regularly helps make you feel less stressed, less anxious and depressed, as I said earlier before. And those are 3 factors that affect sleep quality and duration. So with having an effect on all of those things, it does also help improve sleep. So I think all in all, gratitude has a lot of positive effects on our mental health.
And so for anyone watching this video, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, well, that's great, but how do I actually incorporate gratitude? How do I actually practice gratitude? What do I do? And so we have a few tips for you. First thing, which we've mentioned a few times, and this is something that was used in some of the studies, is to physically write it down. In many of the research studies, participants were asked to express their gratitude in writing, and that's been shown to have many health benefits. And so some ways specifically to incorporate gratitude writing is to write a thank you note, email, or text. And this could make you happier and also nurture your relationships. And so it could be something as simple as, if you went out with a friend that you haven't seen in a long time and saying, wow, it was really nice to see you. It was great to catch up. I hope we can see each other again soon. I hope, it's great to hear that you're doing well. Something like that, which I think sometimes I want to say we might have a more of a tendency to do that. I actually think of it with dating because
Oh,
especially when
really?
you're dating someone, yeah, and you want to let them know that you had a good time. You make sure to write, oh, I had a great time. I hope we can do it again. But I think it would be really nice to also make that more of a habit in our platonic relationships as well, not just romantic or potential romantic relationships.
Yeah. And I think too, like, writing a thank you note is like a practice that maybe not everyone does as much anymore. But I definitely think not only is it, I think people appreciate getting like a handwritten like letter in the mail, thanking them for, coming to a party or I think even a bigger event like a wedding and things like that. But it also, you as the person doing the writing, it helps you slow down and like think about all the things that, this person coming to an event, maybe, they came really far away to come to, your child's birthday or to your wedding. It does help you, I think, kind of ingrain that like, wow, like all these people came here for a certain event, something that I did. And it does help you, again, you feel happier and feeling grateful that there's these people in your lives. And then also you're spreading that love to the other people who did that for you.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you do with your children, Michelle, right? With
Yeah.
writing, having them write thank you notes.
Yeah, definitely. So whenever it's their birthday and they get presents from, whoever it is that's thoughtful enough to remember their birthday and to also send a present, I do want them to get into that practice of writing a thank you letter to them, to whoever it is, for their sake. And then also, we do want to show appreciation to the families that were thoughtful enough to, to buy a present and to remember their birthdays. So that is something as a parent, I want them to have that as an ingrained practice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it has that secondary benefit, not just for you as you're expressing that gratitude, but you're also teaching that practice to your children. And so the fact that they've started that at such a young age, I think will really help them in the future, and they'll already have that kind of that gratitude more embedded into their daily lives because you've already had that influence on them from the time they were very young.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah. And so make sure that you are specific in your writing as well. And so saying, for example, I'm very grateful for the time we spent together because it was nice to hear of all the great things you're doing or whatever it might be. Because when you're more specific in your writing, it intensifies those feelings of gratitude. So another thing that you can do in terms of writing it down is to keep a gratitude journal. So you can pick a time every week to sit down and write about what you're grateful for. Sometimes it can help to pick a number, so maybe 3 to 5 things, for example. And so you can say to yourself, okay, each week I'll identify 3 to 5 things and I'll write them down. Again, be specific about it and about the sensations you felt when that good thing happened to you. So I was very grateful when someone in the supermarket found my phone that I left on a shelf somewhere. Actually, I can give you a very good real example of that. My husband can be a little absent-minded sometimes. So can I. He left his wallet at a gas station when he was paying for gas. He got in his car, drove down the highway. The person who found his wallet in the gas station chased him down down the highway. He was a little startled, my husband, but he decided to pull over, and the person gave him his wallet that he found at the gas station. And so
That's really nice.
that was really really nice, and that was some real dedication to getting his wallet back. And so and he was very very grateful, and he expressed that gratitude. And so I think that something like that, like I think reflecting on something like that in a gratitude journal, that would be something very specific that you can really focus on.
Yeah, I think that's so, well, the one that's just so nice. And I think going back to what we said in the beginning is that gratitude helps you remember that there's goodness outside of you, so that there's goodness in the world. So whether, that was a higher being or just like the general good of people in general, I mean, that's like a nice thing to reflect on.
It is, because so many times we've talked about this a few times before, where it seems like there's so much negativity in the world. The news are so negative, and so just it can be very impactful to our mental health. And so we can sometimes forget that people are good, we focus on the person who cut you off, the person who ran the stop sign, or the person who cut you in line. But when you think about things like that experience that happened to my husband, it really tells you, wow, like there are some good people in the world, but we need to focus on that.
We're not ignoring that the bad things are happening in the world, because it's both. There's good and bad happening in the world, but like, not let's not forget that there are good, very well intentioned people in the world, and I think that person is a great example of that.
Very good example. And so when the act of even writing these things down, it slows down your thinking process, and then it allows you to ponder more deliberately. And so I think that's a lot of what we're saying here. Even with me and the example I gave about the fMRI studies and the activation in the prefrontal cortex, it allows you to be more deliberate and more intentional in your decision making. And so you can even return to your gratitude journal and years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, if you're going through a really, really hard time, it can be especially helpful to go back in that gratitude journal, because when you're in that negative mindset, you can see everything in a very negative light. And so I think it can allow you to also reflect on some of the positive things that you've been grateful for.
That's a great idea. So, in addition to writing it down, and I think writing it down is a great way to practice gratitude in your life, but another thing is just expressing it, just saying it. So, multiple studies have shown that expressing gratitude to acquaintances, to coworkers, to friends, or romantic partners can offer a relationship boost, and it helps bind us more closely. So, in a study of couples, they found that individuals who took the time to express gratitude to their partner felt more positive towards the other person, but it also helped with general communication. So those couples also felt more comfortable expressing concerns about their relationship. And I can definitely see this, because not everything that you're saying to your partner is negative, right? You're taking the time to also acknowledge the things that they're doing right, the things that they're doing to help you. And so just kind of just seems like in couples, your overall communication patterns are healthier, and you feel comfortable sharing the good and the bad.
Yeah, I can say, like, with my husband and I say thank you to each other. Each time he makes dinner, I always thank him, even though it's something he does. It's not a rare occurrence at all for him to make dinner. Each time he cleans something, and when I do laundry, he thanks me, and so it's showing that appreciation for things that, sure, it's what we do. I guess you could say it's expected somewhat, but it did not really. He doesn't have to do any of those things. And so whenever I say something more negative, he knows I'm not just focusing on the negative.
And I think too, it is very easy to, again, like, ruminate on the negative. Like, what is he not doing? What could he be doing better? But again, thinking about taking a step back and thinking, okay, this person that I married, it's not all negative, of course. That's why, there's a reason, like, why you love them and why you married them. Let's try to focus on all the things that they're doing right, the things that they're trying to help you with, as part of that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, for in the workplace, so managers who remember to say thank you to their employees also find that those employees feel more motivated to work harder, according to research that was done at the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. And I think that just makes common sense. Like, if you're working for a company and you feel valued, you feel like they notice when you're doing a good job, then of course you're going to feel, happier, and you're going to want to work harder. You're going to maybe want to stay there. So that, to me, seems like something that should be obvious, right? So as managers in the workplace, you want to cultivate that positive environment.
So that I think that makes sense to me, because I think some managers, what they might think is that, well, we pay our employees, and so we don't need to thank them, or our way of thanking them is by paying them. That's why they're here. But money is an extrinsic motivator, which has some benefits. It is motivating, but a stronger motivator is an intrinsic motivator, which would be, for example, being dedicated to your job, feeling fulfilled in what you do, feeling like what you do makes a difference. And so having your manager say, oh, thank you, we really appreciate the extra work you've been putting in. We've noticed that you've been staying late sometimes. We really appreciate that. That can foster that intrinsic motivation. So, like, with me and my job as a neuropsychologist, I definitely have quite a bit of intrinsic motivation. My managers do express their appreciation and their gratitude for the fact that I do go above and beyond. And so that also provides an extra boost in my motivation to provide more specific recommendations for my patients. For example, provide resources for them and not just say, oh, I recommend psychotherapy, but you can look for a psychotherapist here, here, and here. And so it's not just the actual productivity of workers that increases with managers expressing their gratitude, it's also the quality more than anything.
And I think in both examples, whether it be the workplace or even in your relationship with your partner, it's about being seen, right? I think gratitude and noticing when someone is doing something right helps people be seen, and that's a very basic human thing that we want to be seen, right? Not just for our productivity. So I think that also is what kind of what makes me think of that.
And so, another thing you can do to practice gratitude is thinking it, praying, meditating, reflecting. Those are all related but slightly different. So, thinking it, thanking someone mentally, that could be just thinking about something nice that someone has done for you and mentally thanking the person. Praying. So, for those who are religious and use prayer, you can definitely use that to cultivate gratitude. Meditating, so mindfulness meditation, which we've discussed a few times on the show before. It involves focusing on the present moment without judgment. So there are many gratitude mindfulness meditations that you can practice actually through some popular programs like Headspace and Calm. And those would be some that help you with focusing on things that you're grateful for. And then redirecting your thoughts. So you may feel negative or frustrated during the day. When that happens, you can step back and shift your focus to the more positive aspect of the situation. And so, again, I want to be clear here that we're not saying to push away the negative or to ignore it. It's there and you can process those negative feelings, but don't ruminate on them. And instead of ruminating on them, you can shift your focus to the positive aspects. So it's a very slight difference, but it can be very helpful for your mental health to really focus on that, shifting your attention.
So we talked about meditating, we talked about writing it down, we talked about expressing it. So what are some practical ways we can actually incorporate this into our busy lives, into our daily routines? So research has actually shown that practicing gratitude at least 15 minutes per day, 5 days per week, for at least 6 weeks, can enhance mental wellness and promote a lasting change in perspective. But many experts also believe that just even in small doses, a once a day type thing is also ideal. So, to try to help develop this gratitude habit, try linking it to something that's already ingrained in your routine. So, let's say you are someone who's religious, you do pray at night, then incorporating that gratitude as part of your prayer at night, then that kind of becomes part of your routine. Some people too might, like the first thing in the morning, they meditate, they kind of set their intentions for the day. So that could be another way to practice gratitude, is by starting your day thinking about what you're grateful for as part of your setting your intentions and planning for the day. Those are two examples in terms of how do you actually incorporate it into your daily routine.
Yeah, and I think thinking of it that way, it can seem like, oh, I'm so busy. I have so much that I do. I don't know how I'm supposed to take time aside from my busy life to do this. But I think knowing that just a small dose of gratitude, just once a day, is enough to really see some of these benefits. So incorporating into the routines that you already have, I think, can be very beneficial.
Yeah, I'm just thinking too, anytime you have that kind of quiet time to yourself is probably a good time to like have those thoughts, thinking about those gratitude thoughts in your head. I think that would be also something that you can incorporate. So even like while you're cooking, there's some parts of chopping
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah.
some downtime, or like getting ready in the morning. For me, I have, time. That's the time it's the quietest in my house, is when I'm getting ready in the morning, before I head off to work. So that would be probably a time where it's good for me to think about the gratitude and gratitude practice.
And so that's all that we have for today's episode. I'm Dr. Adeline Leon, licensed clinical psychologist.
And I'm Michelle Young, licensed clinical social worker.
And if you liked our episode on gratitude and would like to see more content like this from us, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can get notifications whenever we release our weekly episodes. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you incorporated gratitude into your life? If not, do you see yourself being able to incorporate some of these tips into your life? And what benefits do you think it might have for you and your mental health? We'd love to know. So definitely let us know in the comments.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mental Health Merienda, your snack size guide to mental wellness. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.